I never imagined I'd be standing on the edge of my own life, looking in and questioning everything. But here I am, 32 years old, married for 3 years to a woman I thought I knew better than anyone else. Angela. My wife. The woman I fell in love with the moment I met her. Beautiful, intelligent, passionate, and now, 7 months pregnant with what I believed was our first child. Until now. For the past 4 months, something has been gnawing at me, like a quiet whisper in the back of my mind that won't go away. And it all began with subtle things most people wouldn't even notice. Except when it's your wife and your stepbrother, you notice everything. Jonathan. 30 years old. My stepbrother. We grew up together after our parents married when we were teens. We've always been close enough that I trusted him around my home, my family, my life. That trust might have been my biggest mistake. It started with small glances, quick looks exchanged between Angela and Jonathan when they thought I wasn't paying attention. Conversations that abruptly stopped the moment I walked into the room. Laughter coming from behind closed doors when Jonathan was staying with us temporarily, innocent laughter, maybe, but now I'm not so sure. One day, I came home early from work. I was tired, drained, and then I heard it. Laughter. Coming from our bedroom. I walked in, and there they were, Angela and Jonathan, sitting on the edge of the bed like two teenagers caught sneaking out. They jumped. Their smiles evaporated. Angela said they were just talking about the baby, about strollers or diapers or whatever. But something in the way she avoided my eyes, it stuck with me. Then there were the changes. Angela suddenly started keeping her phone on her at all times. Face down on the table. Screen always locked. Even in the bathroom, it was with her. When I casually asked about it, she got defensive. Said I was being paranoid. That it was none of my business. It only got worse from there. The timing of her pregnancy lines up perfectly with when Jonathan was living in our house. And I can't ignore that anymore. I tried to brush it off. I told myself I was overthinking, that it was just stress, anxiety. But the thought wouldn't leave me alone. What if the child Angela's carrying isn't mine? At our baby shower just yesterday, Jonathan hovered around Angela the entire time, refilling her drink, adjusting her seat cushion, brushing hair from her face. Friends said he was just being supportive. But I saw it. The way he looked at her. The way she smiled at him. And when the last guest left, I knew I couldn't ignore it anymore. The house was quiet after the baby shower, just the sound of Angela moving around in the kitchen, humming softly as she cleaned up. I stood there in the hallway, watching her. My heart was pounding so hard I thought it might drown out my voice. Angela, I said, stepping into the room. Can we talk for a minute? She turned to me, still glowing from all the attention she'd gotten that day. Sure, she said with a smile. What's up? I took a breath. I've been thinking. I want us to get a paternity test done for the baby. I'll never forget how fast her smile vanished. In its place came shock, then anger. She stared at me like I had just slapped her across the face. What? She snapped. Why would you want that? I tried to stay calm. It's just a precaution. For medical reasons, you know? It's not. Medical reasons, she interrupted, her voice rising. That's what you're going with? You think I cheated on you, don't you? I hesitated. I didn't want to admit it outright. Not yet. No. I want peace of mind. If I'm the father like you say I am, then what's the problem? She slammed a dish down in the sink. The problem is you don't trust me. You think I've been lying to you, that I've been with someone else. After everything we've been through? You seriously think I'd do that to you? I'm not accusing you, Angela, I said, though my voice cracked. I just need to know for sure. Please. No, she said flatly. Absolutely not. I won't take a paternity test. I shouldn't have to prove anything to you. And just like that, she stormed out of the room, leaving me standing there in the silence, feeling more uncertain than ever. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying our conversation over and over. Her anger, her refusal, her defensiveness. Was it guilt? Fear? Or was I really just being paranoid? By morning, I couldn't take it anymore. I needed answers. If Angela wouldn't talk to me, maybe someone else would. So I called her parents. Angela's parents, Linda and Robert, had always treated me with warmth and respect. I hoped that hadn't changed. When I called and asked to speak with them privately, they didn't hesitate. They invited me over that afternoon while Angela was out at her prenatal yoga class. As I pulled into their driveway, my stomach churned. I didn't know what I was expecting: reassurance, maybe, or at the very least, some clarity. But I wasn't prepared for what I would actually hear. We sat down in their sunlit living room, the air thick with unspoken tension. I didn't waste time. I'm sorry for bringing this up, I began, trying to steady my voice. But I have to ask, do you think Angela could be cheating on me? Linda and Robert exchanged a look. It was the kind of glance only two people with shared history and shared worry could make. And then Robert sighed, a long, tired sigh that told me everything before he even spoke. Son, he said slowly, we were afraid something like this might happen. I blinked, stunned. What do you mean? Linda leaned forward, her hand gently resting on mine. We love Angela, you know that. But she hasn't always been faithful. In the past, before you. My mind reeled. Why didn't anyone tell me this before we got married? Robert shook his head. We thought she'd changed. With you, she seemed different, more grounded, more serious. We hoped this time was different. I swallowed hard. But you've had doubts lately, haven't you? Linda hesitated, then nodded. We've noticed things. The way she talks about Jonathan. Private conversations. She acts nervous when he's around. And there it was. The gut feeling I'd been carrying for months was now being echoed by the people who knew her best. I asked Angela for a paternity test, I said quietly. She refused. Completely flipped out. And now I don't know what to think. Robert's face hardened. You have every right to ask for that test. If she has nothing to hide, there's no reason for her to react that way. We'll talk to her, Linda added. We'll try to make her see reason. And if she won't, there are still ways to get the truth after the baby is born. I nodded, trying to process the whirlwind of emotions. Relief, anger, betrayal, heartbreak. Thank you, I said, for being honest with me. As I drove away from their house, my thoughts were a chaotic storm. My heart ached, but beneath the pain, a new resolve had begun to form. One way or another, I was going to find the truth. When I got home that evening, Angela was already there, curled up on the couch, her eyes puffy from crying. The moment she saw me, she stood up, her voice trembling with a mix of rage and hurt. You went to my parents behind my back, she demanded. I stayed calm. Angela, we need to talk. Your parents told me about your past. Her face drained of color. That was a long time ago. I've changed. Then prove it, I said quietly. Agree to the paternity test. Angela's eyes filled again. I can't believe you don't trust me. I want to. But you're making it impossible. She didn't respond. She just stared at me as if I were a stranger. I'm staying at a hotel for a few days, I said. Please, if you love me, if you want to fix this, just take the test. I packed a small bag and left. I needed space, time, clarity. But what I got instead was a phone call the next morning that turned everything on its head. Angela's voice was hoarse and frantic. If you don't believe me, she said, if you keep doubting me, then maybe there shouldn't be a baby at all. I froze. What are you saying? Her voice cracked. Maybe I shouldn't have this baby if you're just going to treat me like a liar. I felt cold all over. Are you threatening your own unborn child to avoid a paternity test? Angela hung up before I could say another word. I sat there, stunned, angry, terrified. I called Linda and Robert. Something happened, I told them. I need to come over. 30 minutes later, I was sitting in their living room, telling them everything, Angela's words, her refusal, her threat. Linda's face went pale. Robert clenched his fists. We can't let her do this, he said. We can't let her make that kind of choice out of fear or manipulation. Then, he looked me straight in the eye. There's something else you should know. He and Linda explained that they had planned to gift Angela a significant portion of their estate after the baby was born, a tradition to help the next generation start strong. But now, if she won't agree to the test, Robert said, we won't go through with it. It wasn't punishment. It was consequence. And that night, we confronted Angela together. She walked into the room, saw me sitting with her parents, and stopped cold. What's going on? Sit down, Angela, Robert said firmly. She sat, and for the next hour, we laid everything out. Calm, clear, firm. Her eyes darted around the room as she listened. When she finally spoke, her voice was raw. You're blackmailing me. No, Linda said softly. We're protecting this child and you. Angela broke down. She cried, shook, fell apart in front of us. Then she looked up. The baby, it's not yours. The room went silent. Despite everything, despite all my suspicions, hearing her say it hit like a hammer to the chest. I'm so sorry, she sobbed. It's Jonathan's. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think. I just stood and walked outside into the cold night air, trying not to collapse. The life I had been building, the future I had imagined, it was gone. Just like that. I stood outside in the cold night air, struggling to process what I just heard. The wind bit at my skin, but it was nothing compared to the chill spreading through my chest. Angela's words echoed over and over in my mind. It's not yours. It's Jonathan's. The weight of betrayal settled deep in my bones. Not only had my wife lied to me, not only had she cheated on me with my stepbrother, but she had allowed me to believe I was going to be a father, let me talk to her belly, pick names, paint a nursery, all while knowing there was a chance, no, a likelihood. It wasn't mine. Behind me, the door creaked open. Robert stepped out, joining me in the darkness. He didn't say anything at first. He just stood beside me like a father should, offering his presence in place of words. I'm sorry, son, he finally murmured. I didn't want you to find out this way. No one deserves this. I feel like a fool, I said, my voice low and hollow. All this time, I was trying so hard to be a good husband, a good father. And then my throat closed up. Robert placed a steadying hand on my shoulder. You were those things. Don't let their betrayal take that away from you. I nodded, but the ache in my chest didn't subside. Over the next few days, everything moved in slow motion. I filed for divorce. Angela didn't protest. She didn't show up at the lawyer's office. She barely responded to the paperwork. From what I heard through her parents, she had slipped into a kind of numb state, silent, detached, defeated. Jonathan didn't call, didn't message, didn't even attempt to explain. I heard through a mutual acquaintance that he had packed up and left town altogether, too much of a coward to face the wreckage he helped create. Angela was left alone to carry the fallout, literally and figuratively. I won't lie, it wasn't easy. Even after the truth was out, I still caught myself waking up in the middle of the night, thinking I heard her voice or imagining I felt the baby kick. My mind would play cruel tricks, showing me the family we almost had before yanking it away again. But in time, a strange peace began to settle over me. I moved out of the hotel and into a new apartment. I returned to work. I reconnected with friends. I started therapy again. And most importantly, I let myself breathe. One morning, while sipping coffee by the window of my new place, I felt something I hadn't felt in months, freedom. Not just from the lies, the manipulation, the betrayal, but from the weight of pretending. Pretending I was happy. Pretending I was sure. Pretending the pieces of our life hadn't already started to crack long ago. Angela's confession, as painful as it was, gave me something I hadn't realized I needed, closure. I don't know what will happen to her, or to the child. I don't know if Jonathan will ever resurface. And frankly, I don't care. I'm not responsible for the chaos they created. I'm only responsible for healing from it. The road ahead is uncertain, but this time, it's mine to walk on my own terms. And finally, for the first time in a long time, that's enough. It's been 3 months since I finalized the divorce. 3 months since I walked away from the wreckage of a life I thought I had, and into the quiet unknown of what comes next. I won't pretend that healing has been fast or clean. Some nights I still wake up from dreams where I hear a baby crying, only to sit in the dark and remember there never was a child that belonged to me. But slowly, the days are becoming more manageable. I started journaling again. At first, it was just pages filled with rage and pain, writing down everything I couldn't say out loud. But over time, those entries turned into reflections. Gratitude for the support I've had. Pride for the way I handled myself. Relief that I didn't let that relationship turn me into someone bitter. I've also reconnected with people I had pushed away during my marriage. Angela wasn't overly controlling, but in hindsight, I realize how much of myself I let slip away trying to hold on to something broken. Friends who had gone quiet have come back into my life. Some of them confessed that they had their doubts about Angela and Jonathan long before I did, but didn't know how to bring it up. I don't blame them. I probably wouldn't have listened. As for her, I haven't heard from Angela since the divorce was finalized. Not directly, anyway. Her parents told me she had the baby last week, a boy. I didn't ask for details. I don't need to know his name, or who he looks like, or whether Jonathan ever came back. That chapter is closed. Linda and Robert still call occasionally. They've made it clear that if I ever need anything, they're there. And I believe them. Despite everything, I'll always be grateful that they stood by me when it mattered. There's one moment I keep going back to. A few weeks ago, I was cleaning out some boxes and came across a framed photo from our wedding. For a second, I just stared at it. Me in a tux, Angela in white, both of us smiling like we had forever ahead of us. I took the frame, opened the back, and removed the picture. I didn't tear it up. I didn't burn it. I simply tucked it away in an envelope, sealed it, and placed it in a drawer I rarely open. It's part of my story, but it doesn't get to define it. Now, I'm focused on building something real. Something honest. There's a coffee shop near my new place where I've become a regular. I bring my journal, order the same drink, and sometimes strike up conversations with the barista. Her name is Danielle. She has kind eyes and an easy laugh, and she asks how my day is going like she actually means it. I don't know if it will lead to anything. I'm not rushing. But for the first time in a long time, the idea of trusting someone again doesn't terrify me. I've been through hell, but I didn't stay there. I climbed out scarred, yes, but stronger. This isn't the life I planned, but it's mine, and it's finally beginning. A few days ago, something happened that made me realize how far I've come. I was walking through the park near my apartment, a place I now go to when I need to clear my head. The sun was setting, casting that warm orange hue over everything, and for once, I felt completely at peace. No racing thoughts. No anger bubbling under the surface. Just stillness. That's when I saw Angela. She was sitting on a bench near the duck pond, stroller in front of her. She looked tired, worn, not in the glamorous way I once remembered her, but in the way people look after carrying too much for too long. Alone. She didn't notice me at first. I had every opportunity to walk away and stay hidden. And maybe a few months ago, I would have. But something in me needed to face this one last time. I walked over slowly and stood a few feet away. She looked up, eyes widening. For a second, neither of us spoke. "Hi," I said quietly. Angela looked like she might cry, but she managed a nod. "Hi." There was a long silence between us. The kind that holds the weight of everything unspoken. The baby in the stroller shifted slightly, letting out a soft sigh. He was sleeping. Peaceful. "I heard you had the baby," I said. She nodded again. "His name's Caleb." I paused, then simply said, "He looks healthy." Angela's eyes welled up. "I'm sorry," she whispered. It wasn't the first time she'd said it, but this time it felt different. There was no defensiveness, no drama, just a tired woman trying to make sense of her own choices. "I know," I replied. "I've already forgiven you." Her head snapped up in surprise. "Not because what you did was okay," I added, "but because I don't want to carry it anymore. The hurt, the anger, it nearly drowned me. And I'm done giving it space in my life." Angela looked down at her hands. "I miss who we were. Before." "Yeah," I said. "I do too. But that's not who we are anymore." There wasn't much else to say. I didn't need an apology or an explanation. I didn't need her to fix anything. I had already done the work myself. I gave her a small nod and turned to leave. As I walked away, I didn't look back. Because I wasn't leaving something behind, I was stepping into something new. That was the last piece of closure I didn't know I needed. Today, my life isn't flashy or perfect, but it's real. I've started mentoring younger colleagues at work, people just beginning their careers, full of questions and uncertainty. I find meaning in helping them avoid some of the mistakes I made, not just professionally, but personally. Danielle, the barista I mentioned before? We've been going on quiet walks after her shifts. Nothing official yet, but there's a warmth there. A calm. No games. Just presence. The truth is, I'm still healing. But I'm not broken. I lost a marriage, a future I thought was mine, and people I trusted. But I gained something else, self-respect. Strength. The ability to set boundaries without guilt. I've learned that love without trust is just an illusion. And I've learned that sometimes, walking away isn't weakness. It's survival. So if you're reading this, and you're sitting in the middle of your own storm, please know this. It gets better. You get better. You just have to choose yourself first. Always.